He cheated on me. Twice. Once when I was 17. And again 17 years later. Same guy. Same smile. Same way of looking at me like I was the only girl in the world until I wasn't. This isn't just a story about cheating. It's about love. First love. Blind love. And what happens when you give someone the key to your heart, twice. But let's go back. Back to the beginning. Back to when I was 17 and thought I had it all figured out. I met Jake Morgan at a house party my junior year. I didn't even want to go, I wasn't that kind of girl. But my best friend, Mia, begged me to come. So I put on jeans, a hoodie, and prayed no one would talk to me. But Jake did. Of course he did. Tall, calm, easy smile. The kind of guy who didn't need to try hard, he just was. I noticed him the second we walked in. He noticed me 30 seconds later. And by the end of the night, he'd walked me home, made me laugh too many times to count, and somehow, without even trying, carved out a place in my heart. We started dating the next week. It was full-blown headfirst, all in teenage love. He made me playlists. I made him cookies. We talked about everything and nothing. He said I was different. That he'd never felt this way before. And I believed every single word. Mia, my best friend since 6th grade, was around all the time. She said Jake was hot in a quiet way. I laughed it off. She said we were cute together. I agreed. She said I was lucky. I really believed that. What I didn't know was that while I was falling harder for Jake, she was falling for him too. Silently. Right next to me. She flirted, sure, but that's just how Mia was. Playful. Loud. Always touching someone's arm, always smiling too long. I didn't think anything of it. Because who betrays their best friend? Apparently she did. It happened on a weekend when I was out of town visiting my grandmother. Just 2 days. 2 days and Mia somehow found her way into Jake's room and into his bed. I found out the stupidest way. I came back Sunday night. Went over to Jake's to surprise him with his favorite milkshake. And I walked in. Mia's sweater was on the floor. Their voices, hers laughing, his low, behind the bedroom door. I don't know what I thought in that moment. I froze. Stood in the hallway like a ghost. I waited. I wish I hadn't. The door opened. Jake, shirtless. Mia, wrapped in his bedsheet. They both stopped. Eyes wide. Like I was the one in the wrong place. Mia said nothing. Jake opened his mouth, but I didn't wait to hear it. I dropped the milkshake and walked out. I heard it hit the tile and explode behind me. Fitting. I cried for days. Couldn't eat. Couldn't sleep. My chest physically hurt. You know that feeling? Like someone took everything good inside you and crushed it in their hands? That was me. And the worst part? Neither of them even tried to make it right. Jake sent one text. I'm sorry. I didn't plan it. Mia? Not a word. 6 years of friendship gone. Just like that. So I blocked them both. Deleted every photo. Tore every letter. And swore to myself, never again. Never him. Never anyone like him. I thought that was the end of our story. But 17 years later, he came back. 15 years. That's how long it had been since I last saw Jake Morgan. In that time, I'd finished school, built a career, had a few relationships, some serious, some just lessons. I lived in Eugene, worked as a senior recruiter for a tech firm, had a rescue dog named Leo, and a pretty decent life. The thing is, I didn't think about Jake. Not often. Not in a way that hurt anymore. He was a closed chapter. Or so I thought. Then one Saturday morning I was standing in line at my usual coffee spot, Clover and Bean, scrolling my phone, half awake, when I heard a voice behind me. Still ordering oat milk lattes, huh? I froze. It couldn't be. I turned around. It was him. Jake. Older, obviously, but still him. Same crooked smile. Same relaxed posture. But his eyes, they weren't the same. There was something heavier there. Like time had knocked the shine out of them. He smiled wider when he saw I hadn't walked away. Hi, he said, almost like a question. I blinked. Jake. He chuckled. Didn't think you'd recognize me. I did, I said. I just didn't expect to. There was an awkward pause. Then he said, I've actually seen you here before. Twice. But I couldn't bring myself to say anything. That messed me up a little. He'd been around? And hadn't said anything? Then he said, I'm sorry. Just like that. No context. No warm-up. I know you don't owe me a second of your time, he added quickly. But I've thought about you. A lot. And if nothing else, I just want to say I'm sorry. For what I did. For how I hurt you. My instinct was to leave. I should have, maybe. But something in his voice, it didn't sound rehearsed. And against my better judgment, I said, I'm getting my coffee to go. Walk with me. So we walked. Through the farmer's market. Past the bookstore I used to hide in when life got loud. We talked. About our jobs. Our families. What we'd been through. He told me he'd been divorced once. That he'd made mistakes. That I was one of them. A big one. I didn't know what to say. I didn't forgive him. But I wasn't angry either. I'd moved on. I'd done the work. He asked if we could meet again. Just to catch up, he said. And I said yes. Because that's what we do, right? We test old doors to see if they still open. We run our fingers across scars just to see if they still sting. And part of me wanted to believe he meant it. That maybe people really could change. That's how it started. One coffee. And then another. And then dinners. And late-night texts. And slowly, without realizing it, Jake Morgan was back in my life. We started over. Slowly. Carefully. Like walking across ice that might crack any second. But Jake? He wasn't the boy I remembered. He was different. Grown. Patient. Intentional. He listened. I mean really listened. Not just with nods but with questions. With remembering what I said the next day. With random, how's your Tuesday going texts and late night, just thinking about you calls. He didn't rush anything. No grand gestures. Just small steady things. Like fixing the hinge on my kitchen cabinet without me asking. Like remembering how I take my eggs. Like holding my hand in public, like it was the most natural thing in the world. We dated like two people trying to build something solid. And I let him. I let the wall between us drop, brick by brick. A few months in, I let him meet my friends. Then my mom. Even Leo, my dog, who barely likes anyone, took to him. After about a year of being together, we moved in. It felt easy. Not the kind of easy that's lazy. The kind that feels right. You know when you've been holding your breath for years and you finally exhale? That's what it felt like. Jake was up early, made coffee, kissed me on the forehead before I even got out of bed. He folded laundry. He sent me funny memes during work. He became part of my world again, piece by piece, like he was never gone. And then one Sunday morning he proposed. No crowd. No flash mobs. No rooftop violinists. Just us. At home. I was in sweats. He handed me a cup of coffee, sat down next to me and said, I don't want to waste another day not calling you my wife. I laughed. Then cried. Then said yes. We planned a small wedding. Backyard ceremony, close friends and family, twinkle lights strung between trees. No huge spectacle, just us the way we started. He cried when I walked down the aisle. I did too. Everyone said we were proof that people grow. That love, even broken once, could be stronger the second time. And I believed that. God, I wanted to believe that. I believed he had changed. That time and mistakes had made him the man I needed. Not just the boy I once loved. I believed I could lean on him. That he would catch me now, not drop me like before. We bought a little townhouse together in Eugene, near the river. I painted the office yellow. He set up a grill on the patio. We started talking about kids. Not trying yet, but the conversations were there. Soft, sweet, maybe someday kind of talk. It all looked perfect. So perfect it scared me. But I pushed that fear down. Told myself, this is what peace looks like. Don't ruin it with doubt. And for a while it really did feel like peace. Until it didn't. Melissa was just a work friend. That's what I kept telling myself. Over and over again. Even when little things started feeling off. We met through a mutual client. She worked in marketing at a partner agency, and we crossed paths during a brand strategy session. She was sharp. Confident. A little loud, but in a fun way. The kind of person who could make a boring meeting feel like a brunch with mimosas. After a few projects, we started grabbing lunch now and then. Not every week, but often enough. She'd always say, girl, you need a break. Let's get tacos. And I'd laugh because she wasn't wrong. She made workdays lighter. At some point, she met Jake. We were at a networking mixer and he'd swung by to pick me up. Melissa was there, sipping something bright and fizzy, and the moment I introduced them, she flashed that dazzling smile. Well, hello, husband, she joked, elbowing me. Jake laughed. I did too. It was harmless. Or it seemed harmless. After that, she started bringing him up more in conversation. How's that gorgeous man of yours? You're lucky, girl, he's the full package. I swear if I were 5 years younger. I brushed it off. Melissa flirted with everyone. That was just her way. Besides, I trusted Jake. We were married now. He wasn't the same guy I knew at 17. One afternoon, I mentioned to her that Jake was struggling with a renovation project at home. She lit up. Oh, I've got a contractor. I'll send you his info. Or better, give me Jake's number. I'll connect them. I didn't even think about it. I handed it over. What happened after that didn't unfold overnight. It was subtle. Like a shift in the air you don't notice until the leaves start falling. Jake mentioned Melissa a few times. She'd send a funny meme. She recommended a podcast. Still harmless, right? But one evening I saw his phone light up on the counter. Her name. 9:47 p.m. That felt weird. I picked it up. Didn't open it. Just stared at it. It buzzed again. I asked him casually, "Hey, Melissa's texting you?" He glanced at the screen. Oh yeah, she sent me a video about that drywall hack. We were talking about it earlier. I nodded. But my stomach twisted. It was too familiar. Too late. Too convenient. Still, I told myself not to be paranoid. Until the night I caught her looking at him. Really looking. We were at a team dinner. She was sitting across from us. Jake had joined last minute because my boss canceled. I went to the restroom, came back, and just paused. She was laughing at something he said. Her head tilted. Hand on her chin. And her eyes, God, her eyes. She was looking at him like I used to. Like I hadn't seen anyone look at Jake in years. Not with curiosity. Not with admiration. With longing. I felt it in my chest. Like an old bruise someone had just pressed on. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. Later that night, I lay in bed next to Jake, and I couldn't sleep. He was snoring softly, arm tossed over my waist, completely at peace. And I was wide awake, staring into the dark, trying to convince myself I was imagining things. Because Melissa was just a work friend. Right? That's what I needed to believe. But in my gut, I already knew. History has a funny way of repeating itself, especially when you ignore the signs. It wasn't like last time. There were no warning signs. No sudden distance. No awkward silences or forgotten anniversaries. He was still present. Still attentive. Still cracking the same dumb jokes during dinner that made me roll my eyes and laugh anyway. That's what made it worse. Because the second time, he knew how to hide it better. At first, I thought the tightness in my chest was just work stress. Or maybe I was being paranoid, dragging old ghosts into a new chapter. But deep down, I knew. I just didn't want to admit it. One evening, I was cleaning up after dinner. He was on the couch, phone in hand, smiling at something. He tilted the screen away when I walked past, but I didn't think much of it. Or tried not to. Later that night, as he dozed off next to me, I sat in the dark and just stared at the ceiling. Something felt off. Not loud. Not obvious. But real. A few days later, I saw a text flash across his phone while it charged on the kitchen counter. My hands were wet from rinsing dishes, but I dried them on a towel so fast you'd think the house was on fire. The message said, "Missed you today. Wish we could have had our lunch break together like last week." It was from Melissa. I opened the thread, and everything inside me turned cold. The way he wrote to her, it wasn't just friendly. He called her sweet thing. Said he loved the sound of her laugh. Said seeing her last Thursday made his whole week. There were no nude photos. Nothing explicit. But it was intimate. He talked about things I didn't even know were on his mind. He sent her a selfie I'd never seen before, smiling in our backyard, with his shirt pulled up to show off a dumb scratch from yard work. I just stood there, rereading every line like it would eventually start to make sense. But it didn't. Melissa. The same Melissa who once told me she envied my marriage. The same woman who had dinner at our house last month. Who helped me pick out a birthday gift for him 2 weeks ago. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I didn't say anything that night. I crawled into bed next to him, tucked myself under the blanket, and waited for the tears to stop long enough so I wouldn't wake him. The next morning, I packed his lunch like usual. Kissed him goodbye. Watched him walk out the door like it was any other Tuesday. But it wasn't. Because now I knew. And knowing changes everything. Not in the screaming, glass-shattering way I'd imagined it might. No. This was quiet. Slow. Like water finding its way through the cracks in a wall. I kept replaying that message in my head. Her words. His tone. He was still calling me babe and asking what I wanted for dinner while calling her sweet thing and missing her laugh. I wasn't just betrayed. I was being lied to while standing in the same room. And the worst part? I couldn't even tell which version of him was real anymore. That night, I went for a walk by myself. I needed air. I needed silence. I sat on a bench near the grocery store and stared at the traffic, wondering how I'd ended up here again. Different decade. Same man. Same knife in the back. Only this time it didn't bleed. It burned. It was the same betrayal. Same sting. Same twist in the gut. Only now I wasn't a teenager crying into a pillow. I was 34 with a mortgage, a career, and a heart that had already been broken once by the same man. And somehow that made it worse. When I found those messages, when I saw how he talked to Melissa like she was the one waiting at home, I didn't scream. I didn't break dishes or throw his things into the yard. I didn't even cry. Not right away. I sat at the kitchen table with my hands flat on the wood and just stared ahead. My heart wasn't racing. It was sinking. I had loved him once when I didn't know better. And I had loved him again thinking people changed. But the truth is, some people don't change. They just learn how to lie better. I replayed everything in my head. Every smile. Every dinner. Every late night when he said he was staying at the office. I thought we had built something. I thought we were solid. But the foundation had been cracking the whole time. He came home that night humming, holding tight takeout, and asking if I wanted red curry or green. I said I already ate. He didn't notice the cold in my voice. Or maybe he did and ignored it. He sat down, ate, told me about some meeting that ran late, and laughed at his own story. I watched him. Watched how easy it was for him to lie. With a mouth that kissed me every morning. Later, I lay in bed with my eyes open, feeling the weight of 3 years pressed down on my chest. 3 years of rebuilding trust. Of letting my guard down. Of believing he had grown up. That we both had. But the truth is, he never stopped being the boy who thought consequences were for other people. The next morning, I didn't confront him. I couldn't. Not yet. I needed to process what I was feeling and what I was going to do. I went through our messages. All the little things he said that now felt like lies. The shared memories that suddenly felt poisoned. He told Melissa she made him feel seen. He told her she had a fire he missed. He told her she was the one bright spot in his week. He never said he loved her. But he didn't have to. The intimacy was clear. The longing was in every line. And she knew about me. That's what gutted me. She asked, does she suspect anything yet? So it wasn't just betrayal. It was coordination. It was deceit. It was something they shared at my expense. I opened our wedding photo album that night. Looked at our faces, frozen in a moment that was supposed to mean something. I didn't feel sadness. I felt insulted. How dare he ask for a second chance only to waste it like this? How dare he look me in the eye every day and pretend? I made tea. Sat on the porch. Let the night settle around me. And I realized I wasn't broken. I was done. Not because I stopped loving him. But because I started loving myself more. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to end this. Quietly. Clearly. Completely. This time, I'd walk away without looking back. Because once is a mistake. Twice is a decision. And I wasn't going to be the woman who got lied to twice by the same man and still called it love. I didn't slam anything. Didn't raise my voice. Didn't even say his name. I just walked into the kitchen, handed him my phone and said, read it. He looked at the screen. Scrolled once. Paused. Looked again. His lips moved like he was trying to form a sentence, but nothing came out. Not right away. I watched his face go through every possible version of panic. And still he tried to spin it. She's going through a tough time. We talk at work all the time, it's not like that. It's just texting. I didn't blink. I said, I know you slept with her. His mouth opened, closed. That little flicker of denial in his eyes faded. And then he said it. It didn't mean anything. You'd think after all these years he could have come up with a better line. But no. Same script. Different cast. It was just once, he added. As if that makes it better. I sat down across from him. No yelling. No crying. Just quiet. And I asked, when did it start? He shifted. Said it was recent. Said it just happened. That phrase, just happened, like cheating is some kind of natural disaster. Like he tripped and fell into her. I asked, did you feel guilty? He hesitated. Then nodded. Which was almost worse. because it meant he knew exactly what he was doing and he still did it. I said, you knew what happened to me before. You knew what that kind of betrayal did to me. He rubbed his face. Said, I thought I was better than that now. And I whispered, so did I. He tried to move toward me. Said, let's talk. Really talk. But we weren't talking anymore. Not in the way we used to. Not in the way that mattered. He stood there, breathing heavy like that would fix something. And I just looked at him, the man I gave a second chance to, and saw someone who had thrown it away for nothing. No love. No future. No more lies to patch over the hole. I said, you don't get to cry. You don't get to say sorry like it's a magic word. He lowered his head. Said nothing. I got up. Walked out of the kitchen. And that night I slept on the couch. Not because I was angry, but because the bed didn't feel like mine anymore. And maybe I didn't either. I didn't fall apart. Not this time. I didn't scream. I didn't break things. I didn't even cry. Instead, I made a list. I grabbed an old notebook from the drawer and started writing. Find a lawyer. Look at apartments. Cancel the joint credit card. Change the passwords. Block her number. Block his too, maybe later. It was like a part of me flipped into a different mode. Like I'd rehearsed this in my head 100 times and now it was just execution. He tried to talk. Kept following me from room to room like a kid who knows he's grounded but still wants dessert. I made a mistake. I love you. We can fix this. I didn't answer. I didn't owe him a reaction. He said, please talk to me. I said, you talked enough with Melissa. That shut him up. For about 2 minutes. Then came the tears. The desperate hands. He dropped to the couch like his whole world had collapsed. But guess what? Mine hadn't. This time I wasn't the girl crying in the bathroom asking why I wasn't enough. This time I didn't question my worth. I knew exactly who I was. I was the woman who gave him a second chance. And he used it to hurt me all over again. I went to the bedroom and started packing a bag. Not because I needed to leave that night, but because I needed the visual. I needed to see that I could walk out at any moment. And he needed to see it too. When I zipped the bag, he said, so that's it. You're giving up. And I just said, you gave up the minute you texted her. It hit him, I think. Not just the words, but the tone. I wasn't angry. I wasn't emotional. I was done. You know what's wild? I even made dinner that night. Nothing fancy, just pasta. He didn't eat. I did. Because I was still living. And he was sitting in his guilt, waiting for me to rescue him from it. But I wasn't that woman anymore. I made my calls the next morning. A lawyer. A real estate agent. My sister. I went to work like nothing happened. Smiled when people talked about weekend plans. Nodded through meetings. All while a quiet voice in my head kept repeating, you're okay. You're okay. You're okay. And I was. That night, he left the house to clear his head. I locked the door behind him. Sat on the couch with a cup of tea. And just breathed. Not because I was fine. But because I knew I would be. And that was new. That was everything. The day I left wasn't some big dramatic scene. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't even slam the door, though God knows he deserved it. I just packed my bag. One suitcase. A few essentials. Left the wedding photos on the shelf. Left the ring in the drawer. Left him in the bed where he lied to me. He was still there, half asleep. Or maybe pretending. I didn't bother to say goodbye. We were already strangers anyway. The hallway felt longer than usual. Or maybe it was just that every step felt lighter. Like I was slowly shedding this version of me that had held on for way too long. When I got to the front door, I hesitated for half a second. Not because I doubted myself, but because I realized something. I didn't feel scared. I didn't feel sad. I felt quiet. Not numb. Not broken. Just quiet. Like all the noise in my head had finally stopped. The what-ifs, the maybes, the stupid hopes that maybe this time would be different and gone. I stepped outside. Cool air on my face. Like the world had been waiting for me to wake up. I called a rideshare. The guy asked if I was going to the airport. I said no. Just away from here. He nodded like he understood. I stared out the window the whole ride. Watched the city blur past. And in my mind I kept repeating one thing. I will never be anyone's second choice again. Not ever. You know what's weird? I wasn't even mad anymore. There was no fire left to burn. What replaced it was this strange, steady feeling like peace wrapped in steel. For years I had bent myself into knots. Tried to be the cool girlfriend. The patient wife. Tried to trust when I knew better. Tried to smile through disappointments. But leaving? That didn't feel like giving up. That felt like remembering who I was before he tried to define me. I got to the apartment I'd found online. Tiny, nothing fancy. But it had sunlight. And silence. And space that was mine. I sat on the floor, no couch yet, and just existed. No TV. No music. No texts blowing up my phone. Just me. I made a cup of coffee. Burned my tongue on the first sip because of course I did. But I laughed. Actually laughed. Out loud. Because even with burned lips and a suitcase still zipped in the corner, I felt better than I had in years. And that was when it really hit me. It's not the leaving that's hard. It's the staying when you know you shouldn't that destroys you. And I'd finally stopped destroying myself. I didn't leave to find myself. I just needed space, from him, from the noise, from the version of me that kept shrinking to fit someone else's life. So I took a sabbatical from work, packed my bags, and flew to Thailand. 1 year. Just 1 year to breathe on my own terms. At first it was overwhelming. Bangkok was a chaos of smells and scooters and people who didn't care who I was or why I'd come. I loved that. I was just a stranger again, and there was peace in that anonymity. I started a blog not to go viral but to stay grounded. Wanderlog, I called it. I wrote about sticky mango rice, long train rides, and the way tropical storms rolled in like drama queens and left like awkward ghosts. I wrote because it helped me hear my own voice again, the one I'd buried under years of we and us. And then came Phnom Penh. It was just a few days detour before I'd head down to the islands. The city was hot, chaotic, beautiful. I was sitting at a small cafe by the river, a place with creaky chairs and strong coffee, editing a blog post when a guy rolled up on a dusty touring bike, helmet off, sunburned, and smiling like he didn't need much to be happy. We started talking. First about coffee, then about where we were headed. His name was Anton. He was Ukrainian, a software developer who took his work on the road, literally. He'd started in Ho Chi Minh and was cycling through Cambodia into Thailand. Phnom Penh was just a rest stop. Same for me. Except after that conversation, nothing felt like just anything anymore. He had this calm energy. You know the type, not loud, not pushy but solid. Like a lighthouse kind of man. I told him my story. Not all of it, just the used to be married, needed a reset version. He nodded like he got it. No judgment, no pity. Just presence. We exchanged contacts, said goodbye like travelers do, polite, detached, half expecting never to cross paths again. But 3 months later on Koh Phangan, I heard my name called on a quiet beach. I turned around and there he was. Tanned. Tired. Grinning. He'd made it. Vietnam to Cambodia to Thailand. And now somehow to me. He asked if I wanted to get dinner. I said yes before my brain could come up with 100 reasons why I shouldn't. That was the beginning. We didn't rush into anything. No fairy tale, no declarations. Just long walks, deep talks, and the kind of laughter that hits when you forget how heavy you've been carrying your own story. He wasn't trying to fix me. I wasn't trying to impress him. We were just two people who'd seen enough of life to recognize that sometimes the best things aren't the ones you plan. Jake? He texted me once. I didn't answer. What would I even say? That I found joy in a dusty cafe on a foreign river? That the girl he cheated on twice finally remembered how to laugh without him? Let him wonder. Because the truth is, he lost me twice. But I found myself once. And this time, I'm not going back.